Do I have a treat for you today? Hi, I'm Judy Shearwaters. Welcome to my channel. Here I bring you author interviews of ordinary people who had a story they had to share with the world. I also bring you short little writing prompts to get those creative juices going in your own brain so that you can write your words, your stories for your generations to come. Because you know what? You do have a story to tell. So let me help you tell it. Today, I want to introduce you to Hope Bean. Hope wrote a beautiful story, a memoir, but she focused on her mom. And I want to start by introducing you through her bio. Hope was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, as the seventh of 15 children. Her remarkable journey led to the distinguished 28-year military career in the U.S. Army, where she rose from private first class to chief warrant officer 4. Following her military retirement, Hope continued her Army civilian logistics professional service while earning her master's from Central Michigan University. Yet, beyond professional achievements, it was her mother's extraordinary faith and teaching that truly shaped Hope's life and inspired this memoir. Hope preserves the story of a woman who built worlds within her home and whose profound love for God created a legacy spanning generations. This work honors a mother who viewed trials as bridges, whose life testified to faith's transformative power and taught that true strength flows from faithful service to God. It's a beautiful book, and I'm just so honored that I was able to help Hope bring this through to publication. So, without any further talking, let me introduce you to Hope. Good morning, Hope. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Judy?
I'm good. I'm good. It's taken us a while to get our schedules figured out, but I'm so glad we're here today. Hope you wrote the story of your mom, Maave's Legacy. That's how you
Yes,
say it. I love this book. Love, love, love this book. But usually authors write focused on themselves and their life. You chose to focus on your mom. And
yeah,
I really like your last section of your book, Why I Wrote My Mother's Story. Could you read a section of that for my listeners as to
sure,
why you chose to do that?
sure. But I want to also tell your listeners that I was never a writer. I was a person that loved to journal, but I knew that I love my mom so much, and I think her life was much more worth writing about than my own
Mm.
life. And
Hmm.
so I do. There's a section in the last part of the book, and I want to thank you, Judy, for really helping me out. And at the end, I want to sum it up with how much you helped me get this
Aw,
story out.
very sweet of you.
So I'm on page 109, and I'll just read three different paragraphs. I wrote this memoir because sacred stories deserve to be preserved. The Bible speaks of remembering the deeds of the Lord and teaching them to our children. My mother's life was a living testament to God's faithfulness. And I wanted my children, grandchildren, and all who come after to know the woman whose prayers shaped their existence long before they drew breath. Perhaps most importantly, I wrote this memoir because I believe there is power in honoring those who came before us. As Proverbs remind us, her children rise up and call her blessed. This book is my way of rising up, of ensuring that a woman who began with so little but gave so much will be remembered not just for her struggles, but for how she transformed them into stepping stones of faith. In preserving Maaba's legacy, I hope readers will find not just the story of one remarkable Samoan mother, but inspiration for their own journeys. Reminders that faith can sustain us through separation, that prayer can bind families across oceans, and that a life built in God's word leaves footprints that guide generations long after we're gone.
That's beautiful. What a wonderful tribute to your mom, who was an outstanding person. I mean, an extraordinary person, that's for sure, in her
Yeah.
strength and bringing up so many kiddos and teaching you so many
Yes.
lessons throughout life. But how long did it take you? I know you're a journaler, and how long did it take you to write the whole story out, even before you contacted me?
Oh gosh. So my mom, I've been journaling about my mom since I was young because, as you learn certain things throughout life, you're like, "Oh, I love what she does with this and
Mhm.
that." And so when I joined the army in 1975, I journaled, especially when I missed her. I would journal about her. And then when she passed away in 2017, I was like, my mom's story needs to be told. So I had all these notes all over. Like I said, I'm not a writer. I was just a journaler. And so really in 2017, after she passed, I said I needed to write her story. So for almost the whole year of 2018, I was writing, putting the book together. And then life happens.
Mhm.
You have to work, you have to do this, you've got children to raise. Life just happens. And then it wasn't until last year, 2024, when I was diagnosed with lung cancer
Mhm.
and I was told that I had only 18 months. Well, you know what? If you know the scriptures and what my mom taught us is that doctors are here for a reason, but we also have our faith. And so I refused to believe 18 months. But at the same time, I knew I had a lot of unfinished business. So, like I said, 2018, 85% was already written. And I looked at when they tell you that, even if you don't believe and you don't want to believe what the doctors say, you look at the notes of all the things that you wanted to accomplish but didn't accomplish. And the number one thing was my mother's book.
Mhm.
And so I remember thinking, I need to get to it, I need to get to it. But I had surgery. They took out my lung. And I was sitting there on January, never forget, January 19th of this year. And I said, I was watching my pastor on TV because I was going to church online. And thank God for online now, ever since
Mhm.
COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so I was listening to him online, and he said, if you're an author, you need to pull out that manuscript and you need to dust it off. This is your year. You're going to finish it. So, long story short, I took every energy I had. I walked up to my computer. I grabbed everything that I had about my mom, and I just started writing and writing and writing. At the same
Mhm.
time, I had a friend named Lynette. She was also writing her book, but she had gone to different publishers. She had given me all these leads. I hired a publisher. Um, I I fired that publisher because it was Amazon. It was an
Um,
Amazon KDP.
yeah.
And not talking bad about them. It's just that I sent them something, they sent me back the same thing I sent. And it was like I signed this contract. And so then my girlfriend said, well, maybe you should go with 48-hour books. I didn't know how to do that. Well, you should do Amazon. I didn't know how to do that. So I was talking to my sister about my frustration. And I said, sis, I really want to get this done. Um, and I've it's almost done. I just need a publisher. I need somebody to help me. And she said, Hopi, do you remember Deb Winslow? And she was in my cancer group. So my
Mhm.
sister also experienced cancer, but it was breast cancer. And she had this breast cancer group that she got together with monthly during COVID. And she says, as a matter of fact, I text her and she's meeting up with her publisher. And I said, really? What's her publisher's name? She said, I don't know, but I'll find out. So anyway, um, Deb got back with her, introduced me to you. And I remember at first I was like, oh, and you said to me, look, pretty much put me in my place because I was like, I wrote you all these questions, all these questions and you said, look, either you want me to do it or, it takes a while. And I liked Judy, truly, I liked the way that you presented yourself to me, because it's true. I went online, I was trying to find publishers online, and you can't find somebody that can package it in a one-stop shop like you
Mm.
did. And
Well,
so I found you, really, I found you early on, right? This year. It was just
mhm.
this year.
Was it this? Okay.
I,
Yep.
yeah, it was this year. Because it was January. So I think I found you like in February, March,
Okay.
and you helped me get it all together. And not only get it together, but you put it in Amazon because I didn't know how to do it. I just said to you, look, I just want it for my family. And we were
Mm,
having a little family reunion in April, and you made that happen. And
yeah.
so I can't thank you enough.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's very, very kind
So
of you. Yeah. What was a joy working with you actually was. We were under a time crunch, so that was a difficult thing, because
yes,
as you realize, we went back and forth a lot. We were
a
on the
lot.
phone, we did Zoom meetings and all, but as we met on the phone or through Zoom, you always had a sister in the background. It was
Mhm.
all about family, always family there. But
Right.
how do you think your mom, even, I know your mom was able to keep the whole family together. And how many kids did she have? Fif-
There's 12, 15, 15
In all,
children,
yeah,
right? 12 living, three were in Samoa, so now you have nine in the house,
yes,
right?
yeah.
And so how did she keep us together? It was very simple.
But it
She,
wasn't only in, she kept you all very close emotionally. She gave you
yes,
jobs to do and all, and there was responsibility every child had growing up. But then after she passed away, you kids are still very, very close. What do you think she did to instill that love of each other in you?
the love of Christ.
Mhm.
And there's this commandment, in Matthew that the lawyer asks Jesus, he
Mm.
says, Lord, pretty much I can picture him standing before Christ saying, there's so many commandments, but which one is the first and greatest commandment? And, I think it's Matthew 22, 30, 22, 36 to whatever, but they can look it up. It says, Lord, which is the first and greatest commandment? And Jesus says unto him, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like unto it, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Mm, yeah.
All this hangs of profit in the laws. So my mom, because she instilled that in us, she wanted us to love our family, but she wanted us to love everyone.
Right.
So if we fear God, I mean, if we know the scriptures, right? It says, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So we fear God, and not in a way like, oh, I'm scared of you, God,
Right.
but we fear him in a way of reverence, in a way of knowing what his commandment is. And Jesus only had one that was the greatest, and that was to love one another. And I think because of that, because she instilled that, we instilled it in our
Mm,
children in their children.
mhm.
So we continue to show that love, not only for each other, but for anyone that comes into our path.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. What part of the writing was the most difficult for you? Was it the organizing it or the actual, I always say, get your Bic, your button chair and just get it done. And sometimes we like to talk about writing, but we don't
Right.
ever put the first word down. But what was your most difficult part?
I think the most difficult part was trying to um, figure out whether I want to do a chronological way, but it was more like, how do you tell a mother's story, not only to your family, but to people that may pick up the book later on in life?
Hmm.
What's going to grab them? And so I was talking to my daughters, and it was during a dinner, and I said, hey, what do you think? And so I have a daughter who's an avid reader. I mean, she's like so smart. And then I have another daughter, the oldest. She says, Mom, when I read books, I like to know what the timeline was, what was happening. She says, I would like to see what was it like in American Samoa and what was it like in Hawaii
Hmm.
before it became a state.
Right.
You need to paint that picture. And then my daughter, Amy, she said to me, um, Mom, you know what grabs me? I love novels. I want to know what was Grandma doing when she first left American Samoa. You need to write it like it's a novel. And
Hmm.
so the only thing I could think of was my mom being on this ship, right? When they put her on this ship, she had three
Hmm.
children. And because she was from royalty, they didn't want her around. So they needed to ship her off. So they put her on this ship. What was it like to leave three children? So the book starts off with her standing there holding onto the rails,
Yeah.
thinking about what was it like to leave three small children for the last time, not knowing. I'm sorry about.
Yeah.
I get emotional just thinking
Of
about it.
course. It was a
But
hard, that had to have been so hard.
oh yeah. And so I mean I had to kind of put myself in my mother's shoes.
Yeah.
Now, what we got to remember is back then when we were coming up, children were seen but not heard.
Mm.
There's a difference in the generation today because parents says, let them speak, let's hear their voice, let the child speak. But back then it was you were seen but you weren't heard. And more so in Polynesia, right? That the way we were growing up was that even with work, either you were working or you were playing or you weren't
Mm.
doing anything. And this it says too in the scriptures, idle hands is a playground of the devil, right? So they always have to keep you busy. But going back to that story, so my daughter, one of them said, do comparison and contrast. What was it like? The other daughter said, make it like a novel so you can grab the reader's attention. And
Mm-hmm.
then my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, I pray, her name's Kelsey. She said, I heard because her father owns a not own, he's a CEO of a publishing company,
Oh.
CIO. I didn't know all this until after I wrote the book, right? But still, Judy, I will come back to you every
Oh.
time. I want you to know that. But anyway, she said, I heard that you come from royalty. I would like to read the genealogy
Mm.
while you're writing this book. I said, well, I already wrote the book, but I can build the genealogy in.
Oh.
And because my mom always said we come from royalty. There's
Yeah.
a lineage that her father was her great 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 grandfather was the king of Manua. And he denounced his title as king because he said there's only one king, and that is Jesus.
Oh,
There's only
wow.
one king. So
Yeah.
there's no king in for Manua. And people may want to say they're the king, but there's no more king for the king of Manua, the island of Ta'u. So anyway, um, so I thought about all that, and I think that was the hardest part, was organizing that, looking at, and then another thing too, with 15 children with 12 living, right? Um, I had to be very careful because I'm writing their real names in my book because I decided people use fictional names, but I said no. I asked my siblings, I said, can I use your real names? And they said, yeah. And
Yeah.
remember I said in the beginning, I was never a writer. I was just a
Yeah.
journal. And I like to read, but not like an avid reader. I like pictures. So look at the book and I talk to you about it. I say, hey, Judy, can we put pictures? He said, sure. And just everything about my vision and wanting in the book you brought to fruition.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's the hardest part. Just to answer that question, hardest part was
Yeah.
organizing it, putting it together,
Yeah.
and bringing it to fruition.
That's awesome. And I love that the pictures really add a lot to it. It's
Yeah,
all about family, all
yes,
about
it
family.
is.
And you chose to do it in color. Now, doing a color book is a little more expensive, but you chose to go that route, and I think you made a wise decision. Um,
Yeah,
Most of my pictures in my first memoir are black and white, but then again, that's all we had back then, we
right.
just took black and white, but you were fortunate to have some color ones, so that was
Yes.
good. Um, so there's a difference between a pantser and a plotter. A pantser is you sit down and you just start writing. You have no pattern or anything. Or there's a plotter, where you actually have planned it out and you've outlined and everything. What are you? Are you a pantser or a plotter?
Answer.
Oh, you.
Definitely. Yes, I just write out my
Right.
thoughts. Like if I'm sitting on I remember writing out, I'm going through a lot of paperwork right now trying to purge. And I remember sitting on reading something. I was sitting on a train and the feeling that I was feeling, just jotting down that feeling of just freedom, watching everything go by as you're on a train, who
Yeah.
was in front of me, who was sitting next to me, what they were doing, what, the people on the
Right.
what I thought the people on the train were feeling like. Some looked sad, some looked happy, but everybody was in their own world. So
Mm.
yeah, more like a panzer, not
Mhm.
really plotting anything out, but just writing feelings.
Yeah. And that's what I like. I usually do tell people just get it written down.
That's
Write
right.
it down. Just let it
Right.
come out. Write it down.
Yes.
And when I was working with cancer patients, I would read, I would say, hey, you know how, you vomited, so you vomit those words out. Just
That's
get them
right.
out on paper, and
That's
they could
right.
relate to that.
And yeah, get it down on paper, and we got people like Judy that can help you put it together.
What was the reaction from your family? I mean, I know you wrote it for your family. That was your first idea. You were going to write it for your family. And I have a lady I worked with who wrote it for her family. She only had 10 copies made. She didn't put it on Amazon, only gave it to her family. You chose then after a while, hey, the world needs to know about my mom. And
Yeah,
I think that was a good idea. But
right,
and I know she had a huge outside family because she ministered to a lot of
right.
other people. But what's the reaction been?
Oh my goodness. I think that's my family really are the people that marketed my book
Uh-huh.
because they loved it. They absolutely loved it because they too want to write. And I tell them, write your
Yep.
story, right? And so they loved it because now when they talk to their friends and they said, "Whoa, I would," because we all talk about my mom. We
Yeah.
all talk about my
Yeah.
mom. My children that knew my mom personally talk about their grandma.
Mm.
So now what they do is they'll buy a book for them and they say, "Here, you want to know about my mom? Here's a book.
Uh,
This is a little snapshot of
uh,
how she came to Hawaii, what the family was like." And
sure.
so it's an introduction. And all my friends, I had some friends that came to me, highlighted the book, and said, I literally cried. I wish I met your mom.
Yes.
So
Me too. Me too. I've had that feeling too. Um, okay, how did you decide on the cover?
well, you remember I was telling you I wanted the islands.
Hmm.
You were the one that really helped me. I had a picture, I had given it to you, and then I got to tell you, so
Look.
where your fingers are at, you had my mom on the cover first.
Hmm.
And then I said, you know what? I don't want my mom on the cover because I don't like that picture. But you see, then there, that's her pictures that I really wanted seen, the three,
The three.
when she was young. That's the first picture that we had of her as a youngster.
Yeah.
So we don't know what else she looks like. But if you flip it back around, you said to me, you said, Hope, I made a mistake on the cover. I left your mom's hands on the bottom, but by your right hand. And right down there, you see her hands. And I said, Judy, that is not a mistake. I love that because it's her hands. And,
Hmm.
it's subliminally. And even my sisters, I said, it's her hands that carried us, cared for us, loved on us, and also
Yeah.
taught us because
Yeah.
she was our first teacher.
Yeah.
So I love that.
That's good. So this was just a picture you had taken, right?
Yes, it was a
And
picture
then,
my sister had taken.
ah,
Um, when my mom when in her last, as a matter of fact, it was her last month on earth. We took her
mm,
to the beach. My sister had her picture on there, and then you helped me, because I don't know how you did it, but you
mhm.
actually moved the picture around and just had her hands. But yeah, we took that picture. It was her last picture on the beach.
Ah. Yeah, I thought it turned out quite well, actually.
Yes.
But okay. I know who I know you wrote for your family. Who else do you think would benefit from this book?
I think anyone that wants to tell a story about their
Mhm.
mom or a legacy. I think Polynesia as a whole, a lot of the Samoan children of my generation and the generations after, the younger generations,
Mhm.
they kind of like don't even know that they have a story about
Right.
how hard their mom has worked. And it could be anybody, but you rarely see a book from Polynesia. And not that not not I'm not just saying it's a how you have some places that's untapped.
Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
And so I want them to be writers. I want them to tell a story and not be ashamed or not say, well, you know what, we didn't have nothing, so we're gonna have, anybody can write a book.
That's
Anybody
true. That
from
is true.
any socioeconomic class can write a book.
Yep.
And I believe that everybody should write something.
I do too.
Because you know what? Long after us, that book will still be here. It's part of history.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what advice would you give to new authors or those who it's just do it, right?
Just do it. Just do it. It's be Nike and just do it.
Yeah. True, true, true.
Nike had the best logo. They said just do it.
Yep, definitely.
Uh-oh. Is it time?
Yeah, we're almost out of time, but I like to give my writers, my audience, a writing prompt. Do you have a writing prompt you could give them today?
Sure. Everyone has a story worth telling. Everyone. And so I want to say to you, if you have a manuscript, um, and you need somebody to help you, and call Judy. I'm serious. Call Judy.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying this. I really mean it because I contacted her. I want to say within months we had this book out. And I'm not to say that they're going to have their book out in
Mhm.
months, but you can help them. I know you can. So
Mhm.
write it and know that Judy is a one-stop shop. You just got to be patient because I know that there's a lot of people waiting to get online. But Judy, remember, I'm going to be your customer again.
Okay, good. I can't wait. Yeah, I'm working with three authors right now, but yeah, I'll make room for you, Hope.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, Hope. This is fun. This has been fun, and I know my listening audience they've learned a lot from your heart. They've heard a lot from your heart. So I
Thank you.
thank you so much. Go have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm sorry we didn't have longer to explore her why today. I love her last section of her book, especially her last paragraph. She says, in preserving Maave's legacy, I hope readers will find not just the story of one remarkable Samoan mother, but inspiration for their own journeys, reminders that faith can sustain us through separation, that prayer can bind families across oceans, and that a life built on God's word leaves footprints that guide generations long after we're gone. That's why it's so important for you to write your memoir, to leave a record of your life, maybe of other people's lives, especially who helped to form who you are today. Your generations to come will be interested in knowing just who you were, what made you tick. So, if you enjoy receiving author interviews like the one you just heard with Hope, please subscribe to my channel. Put a like in there if you enjoyed it, and share it perhaps with your friends or relatives who you know need to write their story. Also, leave a comment. I love to respond to everything, every comment that's made. I will leave in the show notes down below a link to Hope's book, where you can pick that up from Amazon. So, with all that being said, until next time, I'm Judy Shearwaters. You have a story to tell. Let me help you tell it.